Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Glory Glory My Night podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Quinn. And joining me today is Nigel to talk about the victory over Fulham at Craven Cottage, our eighth win in a row at that stadium. We haven't lost there since December 2009. Very, very boring and drab affair overall. But as I said before the game to Nigel, that the only thing that mattered was getting 3 points. Martinez got the winning goal, albeit via a deflection. I thought Ahmad was very unlucky to have a goal chalked off or offside. And Toby Collier cleared one off the line, which proved to be very important. So, what was your thoughts on the game then, Nigel?
Yes, I agree with you. It was very dull. United didn't create much, although they had 49% possession, which is good normally away from home. They didn't move it about enough. They didn't get behind their fullbacks, and the fact, as you say, there was only one shot in the 97 minutes, which was one that deflected off somebody, but we'll take it, and it was a good position. The initial move that Garnacho went down and beat his man, cut in, turned back in and played it out. Now their defender poked it out too, but wasn't Martinez well up with the play when he hammered that shot? And all the team really enjoyed it. It was nice to see the celebration for that goal because it was fairly drab up to that point. But as you say, let's take the 3 points and move on. And boy, we need to move on and raise our standards.
Yeah, Martinez now is really contributing in the other end of the pitch, as well as his defensive duties, and got man of the match yesterday for his all-round performance. But everybody will remember he got the opener against Liverpool at Anfield, and then he provided the assist for Fernandez's winner against Rangers, and then again he gets the winner against Fulham in another away game. So he's having a great month and will certainly be among the contenders for the United Player of the Month. But another impactful substitute performance from the youngster Toby Collier, Nigel. How impressed have you been with him so far?
Very much so. He seems to have settled in well at that level. He engages with the team and he lays it off, does the simple things, doesn't give the ball away much. And the one he cleared off the line was tremendous. I actually watched it back just to see. He seemed to have placed himself on that post, whether he was coached to do it or did it, but that's what he's done when he's grown up at the junior levels. But it was a superb clearance and he was very calm under pressure because he hadn't a lot of time to think about it. And but generally, he looks very good to me. And the more game time, the more fitter he'll get, and he'll develop in the top league.
Yeah, I think so. And he is a defensive midfielder by trade, so I imagine he's going to be like an understudy for Ugarte, if you like, or if he improves another couple of levels, then maybe he could be the starting midfielder in that position for the club. Well, let's see how it goes. But unless Jim Radcliffe decides that to meet the PSR rules, he's going to sell another youngster for pure profit, then I imagine that he's going to be here for a very long time. So yeah, we mentioned just how boring it was. I mean, United had just 4 shots and one on target, despite the 49% possession, as you say. And yeah, it was a dreadful spectacle. And Marco Silva said they didn't deserve to lose. They dominated United, and they should have. They deserved to win the game. Yeah, yes, they had 9 shots, 3 on target, and 51% of the ball. But I really didn't think they were any big shakes at Fulham, and you know they were pretty poor themselves. It was a mediocre performance from them. So I don't really know what he's talking about. So I don't think really he can complain that much. If anything, United deserved to win because they put the ball in the onion bag, Nigel, and Fulham didn't manage to do that.
Very
um,
good. I mean, they're above us in the league. I expected more, but was pleasantly surprised about how drab they were, and they didn't put us under pressure much at the back at all the entire game.
no, the closest they got to scoring was indeed the clearance off the line from Toby Collier. I've seen the goal line technology decision, and I think some of the ball was over the line, but not all of it. So it was just as well he was there to make that clearance. So we don't know whether he was instructed to be on the post or he did that through his own tuition. We just don't know. But Bruno has been very complimentary towards him. He's told him, as Toby said in an interview himself just last week, that the captain has told him just to go out and play his football because you are good enough. There's a reason why you're here. So those are very sound words from the captain, and he's a very humble lad. Originally coming from Brighton's academy, and United snapped him up for maybe a very minimal fee, and he's made his way into the first team now, and he's starting games. He's making an appearance in every game. So long may it continue. So it was really not much to talk about in terms of the game itself. Much like the Rangers game, just the goals really that you can talk about on the goal that was disallowed. I thought the disallowed goal was United's move of the match. Lovely ball from Lenny Yarrow out to, I think it was Menu. Then he plays it to Ahmad. Then he backheels it to Menu. Menu goes past someone, plays it to Ahmad again, and then Ahmad slots it into the corner via a slight deflection. And I thought with game set and match there, and it was very, very frustrating to have the goal chalked off for a marginal offside. And if they've been using the software that UEFA used, it might even have been a goal. So because we're just relying on humans to draw lines, so it was so tight and frustrating as a fan to see goals like that chalked off. It should be an advantage to the attacking team, and it seems as if they're doing their best now to deny as many goals as possible in the Premier League. And then it meant we had to play another 2 minutes of stoppage time, hoping that we wouldn't, concede. Because as United fans, we always know we're capable of conceding at the other end. So it was it was it was a relief more than anything to have the 2 goal cushion, and then for it to be taken away was extremely frustrating, wasn't it, Nigel?
I couldn't believe it actually, and as you say, it was a classy move and nicely finished. And he hit it. He's a left-footed player, but he hit it with his right foot into the corner. It was very nicely taken. And you and I both believe that was a clear goal. I thought it was game, set, and match too. But the officials nowadays and the technology and all, they take some joy out of the game. You can't really celebrate a goal until you have to wait and see is there a review or is there not a review and all this sort of stuff. So it was a dull enough game without having a good goal chalked up. That's the way we looked at it.
Yeah, and the officials have certainly been the star of the show this weekend with the sending off in the Arsenal Wolves game for a trip in his own half to stop a counter attack, and he was given a straight red, which is absolutely unbelievable. And I believe that the referee has come in for a lot of abuse and criticism online, and the referees union aren't very happy about it. But Michael Oliver has made so many mistakes. Quite often they go against Man United and Arsenal, and they tend to favour Man City. So a lot of people, especially what's happened with David Coote, him admitting that he didn't like Liverpool or Klopp before he was sacked. So it makes you question other referees and what biases they do have, especially with some of the dubious calls that Michael Oliver's made in recent years. But Ryan here says, "What's the highest position United could finish this season?" What do you think, Nigel?
Sixth, they'll not get anywhere near the top four, but and they need to go on. I mean, what there's 15 league games left. They can only really afford to lose another game. Really, I mean, they've lost so many already this season. It's disgraceful. It's not as if we're not setting our targets high. It's just on the limited squad we have. We discussed last night the little quality there was on the bench and how limited the manager has to make a change. Now he's making his 5 changes every single game, Kyle, but they're not top level players the way it used to be when Fergie had 4 forwards, which he rotated, and it was that sort of level of quality. Or another winger could come on, and Coach Rashford has gone, and let's face it, he's gone. So there's very little option for him, and that's, I would say, sixth. What do you think?
I would say that's pretty ambitious. Because just looking at the table at the moment, we're on 29 points, still 11 away from the magic 40 to avoid the drop. We have 8 wins, 5 draws, and 10 defeats, and we're still 5 points off Fulham in 10th position. If we'd have lost that game, we would be a considerable distance behind Fulham. They would have been on 36 points, and we would have been on 26. So we would have been 10 points off 10th if we'd have lost that game. So it was absolutely crucial that we won that game. We don't want to be cut adrift of the top half of the table because that would be embarrassing for a club of our size. But we managed to avoid that. But there's a lot of work to do, even just to get into the top half. So I would take sixth here and now, but um, I don't see it at the moment. Maybe the highest we could get, I would say, is probably eighth. But I would be happy to finish eighth again if we won the Europa League and got back into the Champions League and won the FA Cup. I think we're not going to be relegated, so I think we need to really focus a lot of our attention on the Europa League because it's a pathway into the Champions League next season, and winning the FA Cup because there's opportunities here to win trophies. And the league is basically over for us. I don't see us qualifying for Europe, to be honest. Would you go along with that, Nigel?
Yes, I do, unfortunately. But what's the key to finishing sixth? The way I look at it is the return of some sort of home form. We just cannot get it together at home. The manager concedes to the media that the players are nervous and they're afraid on the ball and one thing or another. And we used to be absolutely fearsome at home, and the teams in the Premier League were afraid to go to Old Trafford. It's not there anymore. I think somebody I know is going to the Crystal Palace match on Sunday. I think that's maybe going to be the start of a home run with plenty of goals and lots of points. What about that? There's optimism for you.
I'm going to that game, so I very much hope you're right. It'd be nice to win two league games in a row, which is something that we've struggled with for most of the season. Um, but before we do that, we've got the small matter of the Europa League game against Steaua Bucharest, and we need to avoid defeat to guarantee our place automatically in the last 16 of the competition. But it's an away game, so United will probably go out there and get the job done. There's not the nerves of Old Trafford, and when we set up more defensively and are more solid at the back, then we get results. Problem at home is that the onus is on us to attack, and we leave gaps at the back, and other teams are able to exploit that, like Brighton, for example, and Bournemouth, and Newcastle. They expose all our weaknesses at the back. If we haven't got numbers at the back, then our players just aren't good enough in one-on-one situations. So that is one of the reasons why we're losing so many games at Old Trafford. Um, so I want to talk about a few elements around the game. We start off with Rashford. It's a bit of a monotonous topic now, but he was left out for the 11th game in a row, which is we wouldn't have believed that at the start of the season. And the manager was asked about it after the game, and he seemed to indicate that if Rashford is not applying himself in training or to his life as a footballer in general correctly, then the manager would rather select his 63-year-old goalkeeping coach instead of him. He admitted that with no Rashford on the bench, he didn't have like a quick player to come on, quick attacking player to come on and provide something different from the bench when we're at 0-0. But he's prepared to accept that situation if players are not applying themselves and not giving their all in training. So Lindelof then came in to replace Anthony on the bench, who's now out on loan at Betis. So I have to admit, I've absolutely no sympathy for Marcus Rashford. I believe, according to the journalist at Cover United, he's had I think it was Andy Mitten actually who said it, that every single United manager that's been there while Rashford's been a first team player has had issues with the player, and it didn't take Amorim very long to have an issue with him. So he's been totally frozen out. He's hoping to find a move, and I think the manager wants rid of him as well. But the clock is ticking. Let's hope that he can find a club in Europe somewhere before the window closes on the 3rd of February.
Yeah, I hope he does because he's outrun the race at Old Trafford. He's had plenty of chances, and we as the fan base don't see how he trains. But you have to trust the judgment of the manager. I like the guy, and he's seen enough. He's been definitive about telling Rashford that it's not good enough, and now Rashford made the choice. He made the personal choice to talk to the journalist to say he wanted a new challenge. Well, let's see what that new challenge is, but it certainly isn't a return to Old Trafford. He doesn't deserve. We've seen him play, and he doesn't chase the ball back. He doesn't try to play a role. He's just got beyond his self now, Kyle. So let's move on without him. And if something can be done before the end of the month, let's try and get somebody else in on the back of that.
I think these Amorim comments to journalists are more of a message to the board than anything else. He's firmly letting them know that he doesn't want this player and he doesn't want to be saddled with him whenever the window's shut. So with 1 week to go, he wants the board to click into action and help find this man a new club, because it's clear to me that the manager absolutely does not want him to be part of the first team picture. Look look back at the Manchester Derby on the 15th of December. We were all shocked that day when Rashford and Garnacho were both left out of the squad. Well, Garnacho was fought his way back in. He's now starting games under Amorim. He's playing better. He's trying to adapt to that left number 10 role, although it's his instinct to drift out to the wing. And it's not a big issue because we don't really have a proper left wing back at the moment. So he's not taking up anybody else's position while he's doing that. But he has worked hard to get back into the team. He wants to stay at United despite the club seemingly willing to accept £60 million for him, which they haven't received yet from either Napoli or Chelsea or any other club. He's not actively looking to leave. He's actively looking to get into the manager's first 11, which he has now done. Whereas Rashford has stayed out of the team and, as I said, went 11 games without being part of the squad. So it just shows you how little the manager favours Rashford. The fact that Garnacho was in the same position as him on December the 15th, but now Garnacho was firmly back in the 11.
Yeah, and he deserves. He's, as you say, he's playing better. He's training harder. Obviously, the manager threw the gauntlet at him, and he's accepted he had to change. And he's disciplined enough and cares enough about the shirt that he's fought his way back into the team. And the fan base love Garnacho. He brings a bit of excitement to the play when he takes players on and gets round the back. It's when we go into silent mode and cross passing across the pitch that the fan base just, you can see it. We could see it on their faces in successive matches there, that the fans aren't enjoying the way we're playing. It's just going to take more time for Ruben to integrate the players into the style that he wants.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously he needs the personnel that fits his system as well, because he's very much working with a squad that was built to fit Ten Hag style of football, whatever the hell that was. Um, but very much they're a team that's built for a counter-attacking team, whereas Amorim wants to dominate possession. And we're putting square pegs in round holes at the moment. So I think we're doing pretty well in the circumstances. But we want to see United get more wins in the league and obviously challenge for those trophies as well. Um, Another thing that I noticed yesterday was that uh, Van der Sar was at the game because, of course, he played for both clubs. 4 years at Fulham and then 6 at United, so 10 overall in the Premier League. And then he joined the TNT punterty team with Karen Kearney and Rio Ferdinand, and him and Rio were sharing their memories of being, Manchester United players, uh, during a very successful era for the club, and they were both complimenting each other about how they made the other's job easier. And he went over and done a lap of honour at half time, and obviously Fulham fans appreciated him, and United fans even more so. So he was a great goalkeeper, and I would love to have a keeper like that at the minute, Nigel.
So would I, Kyle. Yeah, and I was watching MUTV after the game, and it was quite amazing the warmth between Anana and Lisa Martinez and the goalkeeper. But he really is huge, Kyle. When you see him standing beside Martinez, he was one hell of a big keeper. But he played every game as if he meant to be there, and certainly I would have liked him to be there earlier when Barthez was there, for example. But the United fans will always remember as somebody who was a great keeper and very committed to the club.
Yeah, he did say yesterday that he didn't expect to be at Fulham so long. He thought that was going to be a transitional period for him after leaving Juventus, and a bigger club would pick him up sooner. But it took 4 years for Fergie to pick him up, and it would have been a lot better for us if he had joined the club in 2001 and we didn't go through those 6 years of goalkeepers that just weren't good enough for Manchester United. We're going through goalkeepers like confetti because they're all making high profile errors, and uh, they just weren't good enough. And if Van der Sar had come in after Schmeichel, that would have been absolutely perfect. But you know, these things don't always work out that way. But he came in the end, and he was there for 6 seasons, and they were glorious seasons. I think he won 4 Premier League titles, a couple of League Cups, and a Champions League, and a FIFA World Club Cup as well. So you know, it couldn't have been better for him. And you know, him, Rio, and Vidic were a hell of a back three there, and Wes Brown at right back, and Ever in his prime at left back getting forward. I think at one stage in the 2008-2009 season, I think they kept 14 clean sheets in a row between the start of November and the end of February, I think, which is a phenomenal record. Um, yeah, I think the reason why he has a great relationship with Onana and Martinez because he was the chief executive at Ajax while they were there, so he knows them very well. And yeah, when he was standing next to Rio Ferdinand, even Rio Ferdinand, I think is about 6'4", and he towered over Rio Ferdinand. That's how big he is. He's absolutely huge. But then Dutch people are the tallest people on the planet, apparently, according to the official stats. And their average height is bigger than everyone else. So yeah, it's not a surprise that he's that big. But yeah, he's a really good character as well. Really likable guy. So it's great to see him yesterday. And yeah, it's great that we got the points because, as I said, I didn't really care about the performance. Yesterday we just needed a win after that disastrous result against Brighton the week before at home. I didn't want it to turn into a crisis, and it hasn't. We've arrested the slump for now, and it's back-to-back wins if you include the Rangers game. So hopefully we can go on a wee bit of a run now. We've got Steaua Bucharest in midweek and then Palace at the weekend. So let's win both of those games and let's put a wee bit of a run together. But it's going to be difficult with such a lack of quality in the squad. We're heavily reliant on Bruno Fernandes and Ahmad for goals because Rasmus Højlund and Xerxes just aren't good enough. Rasmus Højlund was abysmal again yesterday. I have to say, I think he only had was it he gave the ball away 12 times. I think doesn't hold the ball up at all. He didn't have any shots on goal. He's failing to have an impact on any games. I think he's went at least 10 games without a goal now. And Xerxes, while he's decent when he comes deep, he can hold the ball up, bring others into play. His passing is decent, and he's had an impact from the bench in certain games in January. But neither of them are a goal threat, and that's a big issue. We used to laugh at having the likes of Odion Agallo and Wout Weghorst at the club, but they would be upgrades. There would be an upgrade on our current strike force, Nigel.
Yes, well, without a doubt. I mean, Kyle Hoyland will be 22 next week, and Toby's already 22. And look at the difference in the link play between Toby, the confidence he has. He's playing with players that are talking to him. Hoyland, it is a big admission from the managers to say that he hasn't scored yet. It's 11 games he hasn't scored, and he doesn't look like scoring, as you say. And when the manager says he doesn't interact well with the rest of the front three, that's not a good sign, is it? I personally think the manager's getting very tired of Hoyland, but he hasn't got a lot to play with. Xerxes a better all round footballer, and he can link the ball well. And he plays it out with both feet, right and left, when he gets it right. Now he gives the ball away a lot as well, but he tries a lot harder to get involved. And when you're in a struggling team, you need absolutely everybody playing their part in the team. That's why we've talked about Rashford. You have to let him go because he just doesn't seem to want to know anymore. But Hoyland and Xerxes are not the answers. Yesterday it was a defender scored the goal again, and that was predictable. I mean, you couldn't go in to the bookies and back one of our forwards to score the first goal in any match because it doesn't look like it, does it?
No, it doesn't. We usually go 1-0 down in games, We've done that quite a lot recently. Thankfully, we didn't yesterday. But yeah, the strike force, it just doesn't fill me full of any confidence at all. They're not getting any goals. We're heavily reliant on Bruno or Diallo to get a goal, uh, or get a big Harry to get one from a set piece or something, because
Yeah,
we really are struggling up front. And for me, the way things are going, I think Rasmus Hoyland will be jettisoned in the summer by this manager. We'll probably have to take a massive loss on him, and he'll probably bring in a big name striker, most likely Victor Gyökeres, the striker which he worked with before at Sporting, who has a phenomenal record there, and obviously has a really good record at Coventry as well earlier in his career. So yeah, and that would immediately improve us up top, because we need an out and out goal scorer. This is what we needed last summer. It's what we needed the summer before, and instead we signed two youngsters that don't have great goal records. Just absolutely appalling recruitment from Manchester United, and these are very expensive mistakes, which have led to our current situation where we're in danger of breaching PSR rules and having to sell to buy. But selling Garnacho is absolutely not an option for me. That's ludicrous. Um, uh, I don't mind getting rid of Anthony or Rashford, but we cannot be selling a player who's currently in the first 11, and leaving ourselves short in attacking areas. So I don't agree with that at all. But don't be surprised if it happens. We've seen Jim Radcliffe being accosted by United fans after the game. It just shows you how out of touch that he is. That he rolled down his window thinking that fans were going to ask him for an autograph or a photo or something. But quite quickly it turned to criticism and abuse, and he had to roll the window back up again. I think the
well,
language is a bit colourful. It wouldn't be the language that I would use, but uh, certainly it's hard to feel sympathy for the new owner, Nigel.
no, definitely do not. But billionaires don't become billionaires by being nice people. They're ruthless individuals, mostly that I've seen. And as you say, it was an incident that he wasn't too happy with, and the window went up fairly quickly. But you don't like to see that going. Social media goes around the world so much and so quickly. I don't think it does the image of the club any good at all. You know, the other thing last night, Kyle, was the goalkeeping. We're nowhere near establishing who's number one and who's number two there. Some of the fan base thought that Bayern Deer would have got another goal last night. Managers call it didn't happen, and Fulham didn't test them that much. It wasn't that sort of game. So that's still a jersey that still needs to be settled on a permanent basis, I think.
I think we're back to the De Gea Dean Henderson situation again now, except these two are of much purer quality than those two keepers, and like every other position, we've downed in quality in the last 3 years. Um, yeah, so one keeper seems to play in Europe or in the FA Cup, and another keeper plays in the league. But if Onana makes another high-profile error, I feel as if Bayern Deer has to play in the league as well. Would you agree, Nigel?
Yeah, oh, I definitely would. And the people playing, the three playing in front of the goalkeeper need to be self assured and trust the guy behind them. And there has to be the communication. It's not happening there. There was a cross come in from the left yesterday where Maguire headed it for a corner, and it was a goalkeeper's ball. The goalkeeper didn't shout at all, so that there was a sort of a semi altercation between the both of them. Why didn't you leave it? And Maguire was telling him, "Well, you didn't come for it, and I headed it." So there's that sort of that puts the doubt in your mind about the quality of the keeper behind. I mean, we've talked about Van der Sar. What about Schmeichel? They were people who dominated their own areas, and the centre halves knew exactly when they would come and when they wouldn't, and that's not established there. That jersey's up for grabs, in my opinion.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think it was Samuel Luckhurst who says that Amorim wants a new goalkeeper, and I absolutely understand that. I imagine that one of them might be kept as a backup when we sign a new keeper, and then one of them will be moved on, and maybe both of them. Who knows? I think Tom Heaton will definitely be moved on because I think he's come to the end of his contract, and he must be nearly 40 years of age now, and he ain't getting any game time. So I think that he'll definitely be moved on in the summer, and possibly will retire. He may even become a goalkeeping coach. Let's see what happens with that one. So I'm just gonna ask you to do some player ratings now, Nigel. So our favorite, who we just talked about there, Andre Onana.
Oh, well, they won the game, and he wasn't particularly weak last night. I give him a 6.
Mateus Delict.
6 as well. Yeah, that's the second game in a row he hasn't played 90 minutes. I wonder is there a fitness issue there, but obviously the manager's protecting him.
Yeah, I think there's an element of wanting to give Laniero some minutes as well, and yeah, so could be that. Yeah, the manager is quite keen on not, you know, not picking up muscular injuries. So if he's got word that a player is at risk of picking up a muscular injury by playing 90 minutes, then he may take him off. But we do have four, senior centre halves at the moment, and maybe just want to give them all a chance. We've seen Laniero start certain games as well, so there's been a lot of kind of rotating. I think Martinez was even left out of a couple of games himself recently, but he's back in, starting again, and getting back to his best, which is really important. So just Martinez.
The goal scorer, sound game. Give him an 8. Man of the match, and quite rightly.
And Harry Maguire.
I'd give him a 7. I think he's quickly got over that faux pas he made against Rangers near the end of the game, and he won every header he had to win. He was very sound last night.
Yeah, apparently, according to the passing stats, were very accurate from Harry last night as well. Although it was a lot of, sideways passing as you'd expect from a centre half, but he had a very solid game overall. Yeah, he won every single ground duel as well. From what I read, which is quite impressive, for any defender. Um, so one of our favourites here on the show, Diogo Dallo.
Who? Oh, Dallo. Oh, was he there? He was there, was he? I'll give him a 4, yeah. His usual below par performance, in my view.
Yeah, he does nothing to impress me week in and week out. Um, Mazrahi.
He was sound. I'd give him a 6. I'd say he wasn't outstanding, but he was sound. He was withdrawn near the end, but he had a fitness doubt during the week, so it'll take him a few games to get right back up to where he was.
And they swapped positions yesterday. Dallo on the right, which didn't make him any better, and Mazrahi on the left, which was an unexpected change. But that's probably the way I would go if we have to play these two players in those positions for the time being. So Ugarte.
Well, you'll note that the only booking in 97 minutes was one Manchester United player, and that was Ugarte. And to be fair, the referee warned him twice before it finally, when it went in late a third time, he was the only one to get the yellow. But I like the way he competes. He's always thereabouts. The manager's had him before, knows what he's going to give, and trusts him. And I thought it was a good 7 for me.
He very much plays on the edge, just like Licha Martinez. Martinez had another one of those tasty two-footed tackles yesterday on Traore, which Traore was not happy about one bit. Them
Yeah.
two have had quite the battle in both games this season, and with both having success, but obviously Martinez coming out on top with scoring, and obviously United winning both games 1-0. But yeah, the two of them have been very competitive with one another in across the two games this season, which is like to see. It is a contact sport, so you want to see some physicality. So Bruno Fernandes.
Oh, good captain's performance. I'd give him a 7 as well. Obviously, it wasn't a game where there were many shots at goal, which is always disappointing. And he's one of the two players, like you said earlier, Ahmed and Bruno, that will get you a goal. And he was involved, but he wasn't really getting in the opponent's area or outside the area for a shot, sort of thing. So I give him a 7.
Ahmad.
I give him a 7 as well. He was well marked. Now they're a good, well disciplined defence. Fulham that didn't give him, but look at the move that was disallowed for that goal. That was sheer class and a lovely finish. So he has the potential to be a great player if he keeps rising to the challenge.
And Garnacho.
Uh, another 7, yeah. He's settled down again and wants to get involved. He switches between the, as you say, the number 10 inside and For the goal that was disallowed, he went wide and beat his man, cut back in and delivered the ball. Yeah, he's getting better, and we want to see him remain at the club well into February.
And Rasmus Hoyland.
Oh, it's a three, Kyle, for me. I can't. Doesn't hold the ball up well. Doesn't physically get involved with centre halves. Never has a shot in goal. Lacking confidence, and if the manager says he's not interacting well with his colleagues, it's not a good sign. But that's the reason for the low score.
So Lenny Yarrow come on after 58 minutes, and so did Joshua Zirkzee. So what would you give them to?
I'd give them both six. They were fine. What they were doing, what they were asked to do, they did well. In
And the
fact,
rest of the
Penny Euro after the game, I was delighted to see how elated he was going around the players that would actually won the game, and the signs are coming that he's feeling he's part of the squad and part of the club, and it's good to see. He'll only get better. He's a young lad with a lot of potential.
Yeah, very much so. The rest of the subs come on after 76 or 81 minutes, so not an awfully long time on the pitch. But a special mention has to go to Toby Collier for that clearance, because obviously it would have been 1-1 if that header went in. So and he's having a great month as a United player. I'm sure he's really enjoying being a full part of the first team now. He's not just making up the numbers on the bench. He's playing in every single game, whether it be from the bench or starting. Um, so the manager himself, what would he get out of 10?
Oh, he got a seven. He got an away win, and he made a selection, and it worked on the night. Doesn't work all the time, but he say he's trying various things with various players. I mean, one thing he did say post match was that he might if Lenny O settles into the three, Martinez could play further up the pitch, and certainly he's got a shot and he's got a lovely pass delivery over the top. Which was seen a few times, so you could see him playing further forward. But manager did well. That's great to get that win.
Yeah, if you even look at just the last month or so, Martinez played that lovely ball to Ahmad for the winner at the Etihad against Manchester City. He scored against Liverpool. He assisted the winner against Rangers, and he scored again yesterday. And this is a centre half. So that's amazing. We really are getting the best out of his distribution now, and his ability to get forward and and shoot. Also, he's obviously gets a lot of power in the shots. Scored that penalty in the shootout against Arsenal too. Let's not forget that. Yeah, so not only did Martinez defend well yesterday, which in certain games this season he hasn't quite been on his best defensively, but now he's getting back to his best at the back, and he's providing assists and goals at the other end of the pitch. So this is very much the Martinez of his first season at Old Trafford, and yeah, it's great to have him back in that kind of form. And he's the vice captain of the club and might even be captain someday. So let's see how it develops. Um, Another thing that was telling was that three players, apart from Bayindir, who didn't make an appearance yesterday, were Casemiro, Ericsson, and Lindelof. I don't think any of those players will be at the club in August, Nigel.
I hope not, Kyle. I mean, the legs have gone, and it's openly discussed in the media today that Casemiro could leave before next Monday. And if I was him, I would go if he went to the club where Ronaldo is. He could reunite that partnership at that level in Saudi. So definitely, Lindelof, I think, has had too many injuries and is really well past his best. So I agree with you. All three shouldn't be. But when you talk about this and then it rolls on to August and they're still there, maybe they get injured and that they're going to sit out in the last year of their contract. It's odd to me how often that happens. People who are on big money suddenly get injured just before the transfer windows.
Yeah, it is a bit suspicious at times. But we shall end the show by talking about a Man United legend who passed away recently, Denis Law. And you will remember him from your childhood in the 1960s when he spent 11 years at the club and scored all those goals. It was a 237 and 404 games, the 18 hat tricks. the Ballon d'Or win in 1964. I was part of the United Trinity and the last surviving member of that. So I'll let you talk about him then for about 10 minutes or so, Nigel, because I'm sure you're well capable of doing that.
Yes, Denis Law was an electrifying forward, absolutely lethal, wonderful in the air, could sort of hang in the air, even though he was only 5'9". Alan Gilzine, the great Scottish centre forward, said that when Law joined the Scottish squad, he just couldn't believe how good he was in the air. But it wasn't just that, Kyle. He was buzzing around the pitch. He dribbled and he got involved with 1-2s, and he loved playing with Best and Charlton. It seemed to inspire him. I mean, he came down as a 15-year-old to Huddersfield in England, having not played for his hometown Aberdeen. And he arrived and he had a squint in his eye. And the photograph I remember him of playing for Huddersfield, he was wearing glasses before Huddersfield agreed to let him have an operation. Once the squint was addressed, and he got then Bill Shankly took over from Ramsey at Huddersfield, and he thought that Law was just the best thing he'd ever seen, and couldn't believe how he trained so hard and how quick he was around the box. We often talk about the front three at United currently. If the ball came off the keeper, came off the post, came off the crossbar, Law was there. And the other thing that people always remember about Dennis, I mean, he was the king of the Stretford end. He interacted with the fans like he loved every minute, and he was proud to put that shirt on, and he rolled his cup down, and he put his hand up when he scored. He was electrifying when he was at his peak. And 46 goals in the season after he signed. And he made an immediate impact in 1963 when he scored the first goal against Leicester when we won the FA Cup 3-1. David Hurd got the other two. But he really was. I mean, the first three seasons, he had 114 goals in 3 seasons. Now, there were 42 league games in the first division, as it was called then. But when he was on form, he was just a sparkling footballer, and he transferred that into international football. He scored 30 goals, joint leading goal scorer with somebody called Dalglish. Never heard of him, but that Dalglish fella took 100 caps to get the 30 goals. Dennis got there in only 54 games, and he missed a lot of caps because of the recurring knee injuries. The big centre halves at that time, and even the fullbacks, Tommy Smith, Norman Hunter, they used to kick lumps out of Law. Now, Law could give it back. And yeah, if you'd seen the interview when Old Trafford covered his history with him, and he used to, he got quite a few reds in his career too because he fought back. But in those days, you didn't have the cameras, Kyle, you now have in the Premier League. So you can get away with that. But he's one of the most loved. He's certainly my favourite all-time United player because of he was a sparkling, electrifying forward who was lethal when he was on form. Was that good enough for you?
Yeah, that's pretty good. So definitely your favorite player of all time.
Without a doubt. Even though Bestie was from this part of the world, in Northern Ireland, Law just had something extra, the total commitment. And then Best, you see, of course, though his record of attendances and goals is pretty good. But remember, he only played half his career there before he went off the rails a wee bit. Law was a family man. He was the youngest of 7 children, and he had 5 children himself. So he had never problems with Busby. As you've heard it, we tell the story about years after Paddy Crean retired. He used to go out regularly with the wives, and about 15 years into retirement, he said to he said to Matt Busby, who was the best player he ever brought to Old Trafford? And Pat Crean said, well, I thought he'd say Duncan Edwards because of what I've heard about Duncan Edwards. And without any hesitation, he said Denis Law, the greatest striker I've ever seen. So that's top recommendation, I would have thought. Even Kenny Dalglish, when they asked him about being uh, joint goal scorer, he said, "Oh, Law." Alex Ferguson loved Denis Law because of his commitment and his devilment. You know, he could put it about when he had to, but you have to look at the involvement that Hoyland. We say Hoyland has none. Law was always buzzing about, trying to make things happen. He didn't like nil-nil draws. He wanted to score goals.
Yeah, you were telling me that story the other day about Denis Law getting sent off. What was that again?
That's the one that's showing a lot of the old coverage. It's in black and white, but the other guy in the picture, Ian Ure, who incidentally Matt Busby signed in 1969 for 100,000. a centre half who was the worst signing I would say Busby made. But in that particular incident, twice Ure hit him in the back of the knee and the back of the left calf, and Law just had enough and turned around and had a swing at him. So they had a semi battle there in the middle of the pitch, and the next thing he was two straight reds, and there were two Scotsmen having an argument walking off the pitch, having both got a red card. But that was Dennis, like, you wouldn't have taken that out of his game as part of his game.
So would you say he's the greatest Scottish footballer of all time?
Without a doubt, no question. He
And
was
is he
playing for the first team for Scotland at 18.
the greatest striker of all time?
For our club, yes. For our club, yes. And I'm not talking about the other players, but he only played 404 games because he missed so many games because of his. He had a cartilage removed, and then he had knee surgery. So it was so disappointing. The biggest disappointment of his career. He was club captain going into the 67-68 season, and I think he played in the first leg at Old Trafford in the semi-final, but he didn't play in Madrid, and obviously then he had to have another operation, and he was in hospital when Bobby Charlton then stepped up to lead the team out at Wembley when we won the European Cup.
So where does he rank in terms of the greatest strikers of all time in football in general?
Were you talking about in Britain or the world?
The world.
The world? Well, he'd certainly be in the top five in my book. There's a whole lot of competition out there, so you know. But
Um,
he wasn't boastful about that. He was very laid back about that. He says my goals prove what I could do, and all the fans know is that when I went on the pitch, I give 100%. So he did. Never hitting the corner.
no. Was a absolute giant of Man United, and he's the only person to have two statues at Old Trafford. I think he has a statue in Aberdeen as well. I think it was Andy Mitten who commented recently to say that he's more statues than Abraham Lincoln, which I thought was quite amusing.
Yeah, yeah. And remember Kyle Pelly's, the great Pelly's comment about that Law was the only player in Britain at the time Brazil were winning World Cups that would get into the Brazil first team. And that is some compliment now coming. And the other thing to remember is that in 1963, there was an England game against the rest of the world, and Denis Law was selected in the rest of the world team, and he scored. And that's high recognition for a player.
And scored against England when they were world champions as well, I believe.
Yeah, he scored, yeah. And Uh, he always told the story that he wanted to play golf. He couldn't watch the World Cup final. He didn't want England. He was a passionate Scot. He really was. And him and Jimmy Baxter, that game at Wembley in 1967, I think it was, Jimmy Baxter played for Rangers, and they combined, but they were determined before the game started that they were going to beat the world champions, and the rest is history. They won 2-1, I think.
Yeah, they did. And yeah, he's very proud Scotsman, as you say. Even though Bobby and Nobby were in the England team, he didn't want England to win, even though they were friends. So that says it all. But the Scottish rivalry with the English, doesn't it?
That's right. That's right. And he got his ambition fulfilled by going to the World Cup in 1974. Now he said himself later he was well past his best, but he only played in the first game of the three games. But he'd come through that season with City and had scored 10 goals, which wasn't a bad return. And people forget that he scored 25 goals for City before he went to Italy. So his all-round record is fantastic. Superb footballer.
Yeah, and I think he was devastated after scoring that back heel for Manchester City, which he thought had relegated United, but they were going down anyway, and it was actually quite a marvelous finish. But the circumstances of it is what it's remembered for, because it was a Man United legend scoring against United for Man City. So it was a bit of a bizarre situation, wasn't it?
It was. Well, Alex Stepney talked about it last weekend and said, somebody said to me after the game, you think when you've trained and played with that man for so long, you would know what he would do. And Alex said, listen, Law was like best. You couldn't predict. They did things that people couldn't believe could be done, and that was one of those moments. It's not remembered as a superb goal. It would be in an ordinary game, but the significance when he scored, Francis Lee and Colin Bell put their arms around him and tried to tee him up, but his face was stony faced, and uh, when they got back to the halfway line, he signalled to the bench, and you'll see signs of it. He walked straight down the tunnel. He didn't want to play anymore in the game. He'd had enough. He was devastated scoring against his beloved red team.
But was it a year earlier that Tommy Docherty sold him and got rid of him? I think they had a bit of a fallout. You'll be able to tell me better.
Yeah, the team was at rock bottom at that time. Laud had a few injuries. He went up to Aberdeen to see one of his brothers who wasn't well, and while he was up there, he got a call from someone in the media saying, "Do you realise now you're been given a free transfer to Manchester United?" And that's no way to communicate to an all-time legend that that's what going to happen. But he wasn't thrown on the scrap heap, as he said himself. He went back to City, played at the top level, and scored 10 goals for them. Two of them were particularly good headers, I remember.
Yeah, Man United have a habit of unceremonious exits for legends. Roy Keane always springs to mind. Van Nistelrooy, Jaap Stam. So many players didn't get the send off that they deserved. Even De Gea in more recent times. Players just ushered out the back door, and the fans not able to give them a send off. It's but for that to happen, the law that's very disappointing, isn't it?
It is. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've heard David De Gea talk about that. I mean, he would want to get back even to play for his new team. Uh, because of the fact he felt that he gave 10, 11 good years, and he was sort of forced out by the manager, and he didn't get an opportunity. And I reckon he would get a very, very good standing ovation when he did, if he ever did get the opportunity to play at Old Trafford. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, look at all those Player of the Year awards that he won at United. It must have been five, maybe.
Yeah.
It didn't say much about the team. The goalkeeper kept winning that award, but
No.
it's a hu-
No.
it's hu- it's a huge compliment to himself. He won us so many games with the saves over the years, and yeah, he gave us great service for 12 years, and I think he'd get great reception if he came back with another team. Um, that kind of reminds me of David Beckham when he came back in 2010 with AC Milan. The, the crowd gave him a standing ovation, and he was nearly reduced to tears. So he was kind of ushered out the back door as well. So that was a great moment for him, for the Old Trafford crowd to give him a standing ovation, and he loved it.
It definitely was. The other significant thing this week, of course, Kyle, it's 30 years ago when Eric Cantona had that incident at Crystal Palace, which we'll never forget. What a surprise that was! It really was, and that took what 6 months out of his career, and Cantona was only there from '92 to May '97, so we couldn't afford to lose him for 6 months. But he certainly came back. When he came back, he scored against Liverpool. Do you remember? So he's another one of the greats. But while some may call him the king, you saw last weekend the real king with two statues. The other Andy Mitten story was that Law, having played for both City and United, that there's yet another statue near a pub in Didsbury or something like that in Greater Manchester, where because he played for both clubs, they have a statue of him, and half of the year it's in red and half of the year is in blue because it's right in the boundary between the two. I find that very amusing. Only Andy Mitten would know things like that.
Yeah, he has very obscure knowledge of Manchester. But yeah, I think while City will appreciate Denis Law, he had two spells there. He is very much a Manchester United legend, and not even City would dispute that.
No, they
You know,
wouldn't. They wouldn't. But it was nice. The tributes from even Liverpool Football Club acknowledged. I mean, went to Anfield, some fabulous games for United in that white shirt that they played in away from home in those days, and there were lovely tributes from the Scottish FA and Huddersfield. Obviously, the best player to play for Huddersfield in their view, So he was very young, but he played 4 seasons for them, and they were very lucky to have him.
yeah, that's an a really long period of time for a player of that quality to play for a team like Huddersfield. So yeah, it's no wonder they regard him as their best player. So he's probably the best player that's ever played for about three clubs on a country.
Yeah, yeah. But we often talk about his headers, Kyle. I mean, we know how he said that he learned fairly quickly that you had to get over the top of the ball and head it down hard, because nowadays look at the Ugarte's chance last week where the ball was there to head either side of the keeper and he headed it into the midriff of the goalkeeper. There is a certain skill to heading the ball well, and certainly Dennis had it. He was magnificent.
Yeah, as you always say, head it down like the lawman, and yeah, it's it's great when somebody does it because quite often it results in a goal. Whereas I really hate when somebody heads a ball straight into the keeper's hands, or they head it for the top of the net and the keeper can just then top it over. If you head it
Yeah,
down and it bounces up, then it's hard for the keeper to get a hand to it then in that situation. So
that's true. That's true.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So Law was probably taught that by a coach, when he was young, to always head it down, and he probably never forgot that advice and kept on doing it.
That's right.
Um,
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I did see him play for Scotland against Northern Ireland at Windsor Park, and he got a great reception from the fans there of all colours. With a lot of Liverpool fans in Northern Ireland games, and they had seen him at Anfield and knew how good he was. And in the reverse fixture, I think Scotland at Hampton Park won by 2 or 3 goals, but the highlight was an overhead kick by Law in the corner. Fantastic. I mean, some of the pundits have mentioned Garnacho's overhead kick and Rooney's overkick, both brilliant goals in their day, but Law was doing that so often, Kyle. It was just a skill that he had, and he could decide in a matter of seconds the ball was at the right height and it flashed into the net before the goalkeeper could even move. Wonderful to watch.
yeah, you know, Gareth Bale is famous for one overhead kick as well, and Ronaldo. You want
Mhm.
to if for a player to actually do that on multiple occasions is unreal. Yeah, but I never had really had the privilege to watch him live. I'm obviously too young. I was only born at the beginning of the 90s, so I didn't have that privilege. But um, you talked about him getting a reception from even Liverpool fans. That in my lifetime, I've seen Ronaldinho for Barcelona being applauded off at the Bernabeu, and that just said something about the quality of him as well. So, you know, rivalries are sometimes put aside whenever a player is that good. Even the rival fans appreciate, genius.
Yeah, yeah. Well, of course, when Shanks left Huddersfield and went to Liverpool, and he tried very, very hard, 2 or 3 offers before Law went to Italy and before he went to Manchester City the first time. But apparently, the Liverpool board just wouldn't give him whatever the money was. And you remember, Law had the record transfer fee 3 times, which is pretty significant in those days. And Busby said to Crean that he had to rebuild the team after Munich, and that Law was the spark that started it all off. I mean, when United played in that FA Cup final in '63, Leicester were the odds-on favourites. United had just stayed in 18th place to avoid relegation to Division Two by a point, and they went into that FA Cup final as underdogs. But Law turned it round, and then David Hurd got the other two. It was a great game, I believe. I was too young to see that, but I've watched the clippage since.
Yeah, I think I've seen clips of that game. There's a goal where Law scores at Wembley, and he has his back to goal, and he swivels, and he puts
That's
the
it.
ball.
Yeah, in the other direction.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I thought that would probably be a cup final because it was definitely at Wembley. I could see the background, and it looked like the old Wembley.
yeah,
Yeah. So as we've talked about many times, 237 goals in 404 appearances, which is a phenomenal record. Um,
yeah,
and he has the 46 goals in one season. And the closest any United players came to that is Van Nistelrooy, and with 44 goals in a
yeah,
single season.
yeah,
What was even more impressive with those 46 goals that led to the Ballon d'Or is that they were scored in just 42 games.
yeah,
You know, more goals in games is just phenomenal in any league. Never mind, the English top flight.
yeah. And it was the variety of the goals. The first time I saw, I think I'm going back in my memory now in '67. I think it was Nottingham Forest, and he got a hat trick. and one was an overhead kick, and one was a left foot volley, and the other was a diving header. So he just really had that all round class. If the ball was there to get, do you remember the comment you were talking about? Brian Kidd said in an interview last weekend about Law would say to him, "I'll be ready in the middle. You get the ball out wide, deliver, and I'll get it. And if I don't get it, it's my fault. You just get the ball there, and I'll meet it." Can you imagine some of the modern day strikers being as unselfish as that and taking responsibility for scoring goals for the team? He knew he had a role to play, and he played it to the very top level. Sheer class.
Yeah, there definitely only one Denis Law, and no matter who you speak to, fans from your era, every person you've spoken to all say that Law was their favourite player, despite the fact that Best and Charlton were in the same team.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that says something in itself, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
especially fans from this region, saying that Law was a favourite player when George Best was in the team, because you think fans would be immensely proud that someone from Belfast was,
Yeah.
playing for the greatest Man United team there's been. But for him not to be the favourite player is saying something about the quality of Law.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And for Busby to say he was more important to Manchester United than Duncan Edwards. Well, I mean, Duncan Edwards only played till he was in the team at 18, and he died when he was 21, so he didn't have a long shelf life. But all my life, I've been hearing Bobby Charlton, who was a very close friend of Big Dunk, and he said that Big Dunk was the best player he had ever seen. So for the manager to say that Law was the most important player and the most exciting player, that's some accolade, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. But could it have something to do with the fact that they're both Scottish?
Ask Alex Ferguson that. And Bill Shankly, God rest him. Bill Shankly
Yeah,
loved Dennis Law. He's a certain way of saying it. Dennis in the Scottish accent, you knew he was in Shankly's camp. So Shankly loved him. He was raging with the Liverpool board for not giving them the money to buy him.
from Huddersfield.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that really could have changed the course of history there.
it could. It could. Yeah.
Okay, then we'll wrap it up there. Please, everybody, like the video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube, you're listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate all the watches, the listens, and the downloads. And please spread the word to more Man United fans about our podcast. And Nigel, it's been a pleasure as always.
No problem. Enjoyed it, Kyle.
All right, I'll see you later.
See you later. Bye.